Hey there, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk about something that I encountered this year and I didn't know anything about, and that is how to set up a business. Now, I'm not talking about starting a business as in how to come up with something that people want and provide value to them such that they will exchange their hard-earned dollars for it, but I'm really talking about what would be called the back office function in most businesses. So that would be finance, accounting, and legal. And so I wanted to talk about how to set up a business in that sense. So we're going to talk about business entities, we're going to talk about business banking, and we're going to talk about accounting and bookkeeping. Now, I realize that's not going to be super exciting for most people, but these are things that I didn't know anything about, that I found really intimidating, and that I had to do a fair bit of my own research in order to figure out. And so I'm hoping that by sharing this knowledge, I might be able to save you a few hours or a few days of research and hopefully a bit of anxiety as it pertains to setting up your business back office function. So let's go ahead and get into it, starting with business entity. So the way I see it here is you basically have two choices. Choice number one is you can be a sole proprietor, and choice number two is you can be an LLC, or you can incorporate an LLC. Now, there are other entities like, for example, C Corps, but I'm not going to talk about those because unless you want to raise venture capital or something similar, then it probably won't be relevant. So that leaves us with sole proprietorship and LLC. And the main difference with an LLC is your liability is limited. That's where the two L's come from. Basically, your personal assets can't be seized to cover business losses. And that's really important, I think, legally. A sole proprietorship is basically the opposite, where there's unlimited liability. Now, there are other things like there can be multiple people that are owners, which are called members of an LLC, and other things like that. But if it's just you and I'm just me and my business, those are basically your two choices, and I would recommend an LLC. Now, another question is how to incorporate. You can go on the Secretary of State website for your state, assuming you're in America, and figure out how to download the various papers and apply. It's fairly straightforward, but I did have my accountant do this for me just because I didn't want to deal with it. I'll include a little bit more detail below about the difference between sole proprietorships and LLC if you want to do a bit of reading. This discussion of the business entities isn't meant to be exhaustive, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, so don't take it as legal advice, but I think that's at least enough to get you thinking. Let's talk about our second area, which is business banking. Now, after you apply for your LLC and get a federal tax ID, you're able to open a business banking account. And I really didn't know where to turn here. I was thinking about going with Chase. I was thinking about maybe just going with my regular bank, but I found a really great solution suggested to me by a former colleague, and that is Bluevine. I recommend Bluevine just because it's the easiest way to get started with a business banking account because it's totally online. All you need is that federal tax ID, and you can go ahead and spin up an account. You get a debit card sent to your house, and you can even order checks if you need them, but it's a totally online bank, meaning there are no physical brick and mortar locations, but they do have partnerships with ATMs across the country, so if you need cash, you can get it. You're not going to get all the services you would normally have included with a brick and mortar bank, but for my purposes, Bluevine was perfect, and so I recommend it here. I know you may be expecting maybe a little bit more about the mechanics of doing business banking, but the thing is, if you're just gonna have a checking account, there's really not that much to it. It's money in, money out. And for me, I knew that I wanted the easiest thing possible. And so Bluevine fit the bill. And another cool thing about Bluevine is that they actually pay interest on the amount of money you have in your checking account. So not insignificant amounts, I would say too, $100, $200 here. Depends on how much you have in your account, obviously, but they pay a significant percentage. And so that's cool to see just because historically with a personal checking account, you're really not getting much back. And so I like Bluevine for a whole lot of different reasons, but those are the main ones. And so if you want to spin up a quick checking account, then I would suggest Bluevine. Okay, so our last area, bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is going to be key for doing a lot of things, just keeping track of your business, but also paying estimated quarterly taxes, which you're required to do if you're self-employed, which I did last week. And so I wanted, again, a really simple solution. And I happened to find a template out there from the company Bench. And they have this template that is just a basic bookkeeping template where they have the chart of accounts already set up for you. Chart of accounts is basically all the various buckets that your charges can go in. And this has been serving me really well. So I started it when I started my business this year, and I update it every month. And that's been really helpful for me and my accountant to just keep track of things. And so I'll go ahead and provide a link to that down below. But that has been kind of my go-to for bookkeeping. And so again, my whole theme with all this is how can I make it as easy as possible? I know a lot of these things can seem overwhelming. And so I just wanted to do it for myself in a way that was most accessible and most streamlined. And so I'm sharing it with you in that regard. Now, as to actually how to use the template, there are instructions in it, so I won't get into that here. But if this sounds like something that could be good for your purposes, then go ahead and check out that link down below. All right, that's all I've got. I know these were pretty quick overviews in each section, but again, I wanted to make it simple because I wanted it to be simple for myself. And I think I found something at the end of the day that checks that box. And I hope it does for you too. That's all for today. Thanks so much for watching to the end. This video is a little bit different than the ones I normally make. I typically make videos about software engineering and self-employment. So if that sounds interesting to you, then consider sticking around. But regardless, thanks so much for being here. Remember, stay hungry, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.